Hello and welcome to Coach Me Coach Episode 2. Coach Me Coach is the podcast where we get a bunch of coaches together and ask them questions about their respective areas of expertise, and they give us lots of answers. So first of all, let's say hi to our coaches. Hello, coaches.
Hi, David.
Hi, guys. All right. So first things first, though, I am a coach who coaches other coaches, so I'm going to start by answering a question, and then we'll get to our guest coaches today. All right. So our question today is, I have a job interview over Zoom coming up. Is there something special I should do to be good on camera? Okay, so the good news and the bad news is, yes, there's actually a lot you should do. Being good on Zoom these days is really, really important. And it is a skill just like any other skill. And it's probably not something you're going to be able to do in a couple days. So for this person who's asking the question, presumably his or her interview is coming up in a couple of days. So let me give you just like a quick, down and dirty couple of little tips to try. And then I'll talk about the bigger issue with this question. So a couple tips. Number one is look at the camera, not at the screen. Right? This is me looking at the screen. You do not feel connected to me right now if you're looking at this on video. Look at the camera. Find out where your camera is. Look at the camera as much as you can. You can sneak a peek occasionally, but for the most part, just like if you were having an interview in real life, you would want to make eye contact with the person who's interviewing you. When you have an interview happening over Zoom, you want to make eye contact. It's something you should practice. It doesn't feel natural at first, but you do get used to it. But look at the camera, not at the screen. Another tip that I would recommend is when you have your Zoom window, is just shrink that window down as small as it can be so that you have and then push it all the way up to the top and the middle. Presumably that's where your Zoom, where your camera is, so that the interviewer's face is as close to the camera as possible, so that when you do forget to make eye contact and look down, you're just looking down a little bit instead of a lot. So that is what I would say. I would say practice with a couple of friends and family members of just getting comfortable being yourself, feeling what it feels like to be you with people who you know and have had in-person conversations with. Do that a couple times before your interview, just so that you're at least getting a little bit more familiar with being yourself, so that you start to associate Zoom with being yourself and not with some sort of meeting that you're dreading and checking out on. All right, so that's the main thing I would recommend. Overall, though, the bigger thing is this is a skill that we should all be working on. Getting good on camera doesn't just mean making videos or doing Instagram Lives or Facebook Lives and things. It also means Zoom, Skype, whatever the next platform is. Being able to be yourself and communicate well over some sort of video conferencing technology is going to become more and more and more a part of our lives, including job interviews. And so you want to get started right now on that so that a year from now, when you are told that you're going to be having a job interview over Zoom, instead of thinking, oh shit, you're going to think, oh yeah, like I know how to do that. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be like in the top 25% of applicants before they even look at anyone's resume. So if you're comfortable on camera, they will be comfortable with you. Just like in person, if somebody is comfortable in their own skin, they're much more appealing and you want to work with that person. And so your job interviewer will be much more likely to want to work with you if you're comfortable on Zoom. All right. So now we've got our coaches. All right. So let's go to our first coach. All right. And I'm here with Flora McCormick. Hello, Flora.
Hi, David.
How are you doing today?
Doing good, thanks.
All right, cool. So Flora is the leader of Sustainable Parenting. It's a Facebook group. What's the deal with that?
Yeah. So as a stay-at-home mom myself, after being a licensed therapist, I went through this process of feeling like a lot of the advice I was getting wasn't sustainable personally. I was ping-ponging between like gentle mom and then monster mom and feeling really out of control. And so I took my background and my personal experience and combined it into the strategies I now give parents that I find people saying feel more sustainable.
Cool. Yeah, it's a really fun group. People, how do they find it? They can go to facebook.com/groups/sustainable parenting or just directly to my website, sustainableparenting.com. All right, cool. All right. So these are questions from real people in the Sustainable Parenting group. that we have gathered. We're not going to use their names, just, for obvious reasons. All right. So the first question that we have from an actual sustainable parenting group member is, how do you assert your need for space when you have littles?
Yeah. And this is such a great question. I find that, first of all, it's a lot about the mom or dad. Most often I hear this more from moms, being able to give themselves permission that it is not our job to constantly entertain the child. So meanwhile, we're sitting here saying, how do I get them to give me space? And usually it's more about us. How do I assert my need for space without feeling bad about it, without feeling guilty, And so to this mama, I want to say, first of all, it is okay. You can be a loving, caring, wonderful, supportive mom and say that you need a little space. It's good for them. It's good for you. So one of my favorite phrases to be able to accomplish this and remember it is, I love you. And the answer is no. We often can think it's like, I love you. I love you. Okay, but I can't love you now, but I have to have this space. Don't say the but. It's just, and I love you, honey. And mommy is sitting down for a minute and you can play with this. Whatever the phrase is on both sides of the and, give the love and set the boundary.
Well, that's great. That's one people should try today.
They could do it today. Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
All right, Flora, I love you. And we need to move on to this next question.
That's big. You're already learning. You're a quick learner.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So this is a very long question. All right. So I'll act it out a little bit. All right. I was pretty sure that the reason my 5-year-old son is extremely well behaved was because I'm super mom and I've got it all figured out. I'm joking, but I'm a pretty firm parent. Now, I also have a 10-month-old, and he's the total opposite and is already more defiant than my 5-year-old has ever been. I'm pretty sure he is going to give me gray hair. So my question is, how do you start disciplining from a young age? Where do you begin early to set up a good foundation?
Yeah, such a good question. And you did it very well. Wonderful acting. And
I've got some gray hairs to help sell it.
I know there are moms listening that can relate to this. All of our kids are so different. I mean, and often we can think that if the first one went well, that's all thanks to us. And really, we know out there that about 40% of children are kind of easygoing, cooperative. 30% tend to be more like defiant, strong-willed, and 30% tend to be more sensitive and emotional. So if you have a child falling into one of those more challenging categories, first of all, know it's not something that you did. It's likely temperament. We all have different inborn personality traits, and it may be something that's kind of true about you or your spouse. Are one of you sort of a more strong-willed parent? I would guess probably. And if that's the case, then there are two sides of this coin. We don't want to just squash it and make him have to be an obedient golden retriever. We want him to learn how to get his needs met in a way that's really effective. So I would suggest for this little guy, there's two main categories you can think of. One is, what are his lagging skills? Meaning lagging is they just landed on this planet. They do not immediately know how to ask when they want something, how to let you know when they're all done, how to, manage emotions when they're not getting their way. And so these are all teachable moments. A really key thing for a 10-month-old is to be using baby sign language, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I know I've seen people be like, oh, yeah. I keep meaning to get a book. Don't get a book. Google right now, sign language for the motions of more, please, all done, and help. Those simple 4 signs when your kid is struggling, whining, protesting, if you have a gut feeling they're trying to communicate more, all done, help, or please, you can replace that yell with, oh, it seems like you're trying to say more. Take their little hands, make the more motion, and then respond by giving them more of that thing. And the more you can replace, that's going to be helping the lagging skill. So when we think of discipline, I guess I see your curious face, David, maybe wondering wait, how is this discipline?
I was thinking baby sign language. I had no idea that was a thing.
Oh my gosh, such a thing, because like this 10-month-old wants to communicate. They are human, they have interests, and yet they're in this prime area where they're more aware of the world and still very incapable of communicating their needs. So yeah, you teach them sign language, and it's a great gateway as they're starting to develop actual words to say more, help, and please, and those sorts of things. Wow. So yeah, and it's a part of discipline, because discipline is to teach. We're trying to teach him how to manage and get his needs met. And that's why this is a part of discipline.
Wow, that's amazing.
The second one, yay, let me just give you one more thing to this, Mama, which would be the more that you can distract and redirect to what he can do, the more effective you're going to be. So when you say he's being defiant, I wonder if I had a movie camera watching you, if we may see you saying no a lot. No, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Oh, yes, we don't touch that. And that he's a child who's more prone to be like, ooh, she said, touch that. Those are the words he hears out of it. So instead, the more you can, instead of saying no, tell him what the yes is. So I call this red light, green light with my clients. Instead of just focusing on the red light, give them the green light. Oh, it looks like you're wanting to throw things. This is a softball you can throw. This is a cushion you can throw. Looks like you're wanting to squeeze something. You can come over here and squeeze this squishy instead of sister's face. It looks like you're wanting to touch buttons. You can come over and touch these buttons instead of the remote buttons. Or just distracting them to other things to be interested in is really a key at this first age. Give them what they can do to feel interested and playful.
Cool. That's great. I had no idea about all this. This is all new and exciting. And you're not just a mom, but you're a trained therapist. Like you're.
Yep. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been working as a parenting coach for 12 years now. And every job I had before that was summer camp counselor, after school program leader, worked with kids my whole life. Yeah. I really enjoy that relationship with helping to guide kids. Yeah.
Cool. So you've done your research in the wild, as well as academically. Cool,
in the wild and in learning. Yeah. So I have a master's in counseling and began my path working with kids directly who were 8 and older, and then just saw, oh my goodness, I wish I could have their parents more and equip them. And so that's what I'm doing. I moved upstream and helping families to not get to that place of as much struggle when the kids are older.
Right. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So our next question is, I've been involved in this. I need help transitioning my 7-year-old from stuck moments, like he literally won't enter his classroom or get in the car without getting what he wants, into normal behavior. Basically bringing him out of a red zone and into a more tranquil, adaptable state. Yeah, like a battle of wills where they can always do the passive resistance thing of like, nope, I'm just, flapping down and not moving. Yeah. Yeah, what do you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of my favorite strategies for this, David, first of all, as you're going to guess from what I said the first time we started talking here, is it's about you more than it's about them. If you can stop and notice how much you're trying to move the train forward, what has to happen, you're going to keep getting their resistance of, I don't want to.
But it does have to happen. Like they do have to get out of the car.
It does have to happen. Yes. So, but what I'm saying is you can either be effective or you can be right.
Continue.
To be right would be to just keep arguing your point. To be effective would be to pause that train you're trying to push forward. And I call connect before you correct. So one of my favorite strategies for this is a 30-second hug combined with something I kind of call whoa, low, and slow. Like imagine David right now, you're like, I don't want to have this podcast with you. I don't want to talk about this. Stop telling me all these things. And I could just tell you a bunch of great points and you would totally want to argue back with me. Or I could say, whoa, David, I'm noticing you're not liking what we're talking about. And then one of my favorite strategies in parenting, pause. And that then could lead into a 30-second hug, Imagine I'm giving you that 30-second hug. What are you noticing? How are you feeling in terms of potentially having the openness to then have me say it? We have one more question, and I'd really like to just ask this one more question, David. So that's the idea. It doesn't mean we don't move the train forward, but if we want to be effective instead of being right, we can slow it down, pause, and use a little connection to where that resistance is coming from.
I love that. Like, even though we were just I was sort of goofing around, I definitely felt like I feel much more relaxed and open now, for real. Like, really, yeah.
And it's literally all I did is not voodoo magic. I've heard parents say, oh, I can't talk like that. All I did was slow motion talk. Like, you don't have to get fancy. You don't have to feel like a therapist. If you could practice when you're in that moment of wanting to scream and lecture and push, to just talk in slow motion, give it a try.
I'm just thinking, I have a friend of mine who has done this sort of thing on me occasionally. I've never put it to words, but she's really good at interrupting. Like, if we're having a big heated argument or whatever, she'll do that exact. I don't know whether she's consciously doing it, but yeah, and it totally works. It's like, you're just totally the red goes from your eyes. Yeah, this is totally effective on tiny children and apparently on 40-year-olds.
Yes, let me say it also works great in marriage or relationships with your partner.
Yeah, and or a movie producer with the director when they're being an asshole. Yeah, that's All right, so last question, or not last question, but last regular question. How do you suggest parents keep their cool when working to change their kids' behavior? For example, the kid isn't listening.
Yes. So the best thing that I can say is, again, I'm hoping to be repeating this, that it will really be getting through, that often the biggest change can happen from ourselves. We're like, why aren't they listening? Why won't they do this? And I'm so mad. Parents will think, I guess I just need to be more patient. I've just got to be patient with them. And no, I would say, work on ways that you can be feeling more effective, and then you're going to be able to keep your cool. So this is sort of counterintuitive, but I find that if you are losing your cool a lot with your kids, it's not that you need to be more gentle. It's that you actually probably need to be more firm. What I mean by that is, if you think of any relationship, if you're starting to feel out of control and very angry, it's not that they keep pushing your boundaries. It's that you're probably not being clear enough of holding your boundaries. So if you aren't sure how to do this and you're like, I'm not sure what you're talking about or how I would be more firm, I would suggest looking into finding a parenting coach. I would love to connect with you on that. Sustainable parenting. For example, or find someone that you align with. You align with their values, find more ways to feel effective and empowered. And then you're not going to be losing your cool on your kid when they're just doing their normal kid job, which is really to test rules and boundaries to see what happens when they do. That's their job. And then I guess one secondary thing I would offer is back to that hug, that connect before you correct. Many parents that I coach will say, I thought this was for him so he could get out of the red zone.
Right. But you're involved in the hug too.
Yeah, exactly. It forces you to slow down when you do that slow motion talking, or to offer a hug sort of makes your heart all of your serotonin and stuff fire again and be like, okay, I love this kid. Okay, that's right. Kind of brings you back to center. Wow.
That's so clever. You're an evil genius, Flora. But except a good evil genius. But that's great. It just totally makes sense. And I don't have kids, so it's okay that I don't know any of this stuff, but it's parenting is a job that you should know what you're doing with, but you really kind of you didn't go to school for it. Yeah.
And a lot of us can feel some guilt that we would need some ideas, but everything else in life, business, relationship,
be proud of improving yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So now we have our out of my comfort zone question. So this is a question that is not about your area of expertise. And first of all, the rule is that you have to answer with a yes or no. You can't you can then explain and shade it, but you have to answer with a yes or no question, with a yes or no answer.
Okay.
All right. Do you tell your friend that you know that her new boyfriend has cheated once in the past?
Absolutely.
All right.
No hesitation. I
All right.
have been in this position. I would definitely, yes.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Flora.
Honesty is the best policy. And
Yeah.
just like parenting, like do the hard thing, because an authentic relationship that is, even if it has to face hard stuff, is just way better than trying to just put icing on a piece of poop, you know?
Yeah. And so, if people do want to check you out, search Sustainable Parenting in Facebook and then ask
Or
to
the
join
web,
the group.
either one.
Or on the web, yeah. All right, cool. And what are you offer one-on-one coaching or group coaching, or what are you?
Yep.
What else do you offer? People want more.
I offer group coaching as my primary mode of working with parents. Sometimes we'll do a single session just if they'd like to get to know me a little bit better. They can have a free clarity call where we talk through what their challenges are they're facing. And I'll make my honest suggestions. Sometimes it is to go to a different type of provider, and other times it's that I really do think they benefit from a group coaching setting. I offer it either in a 1 month or 4 month package. And I'd love to talk to anyone about that who has questions.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Flora.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David.
Now we have Dr. Monica Kleeberger. Hi, Monica. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. And you are you're founder and host of the group Courageous Christian Marriages, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And where is that group, and what is that group?
Well, you can find the group on Facebook. Just search Courageous Christian Marriages. And we're a group of Christians who are wanting to build a healthy, joyful marriage together.
Cool. So is it like super dark and heavy? Is it lighter? Some of both?
We do a little bit of both. We talk about the hard things that come with marriage. And we also talk about how to protect the marriage, how to have fun in your marriage, and also some of the sexy things that are a part of marriages and how to enhance that.
All right. Okay. So we got some questions here gathered from actual members of your group. We're not going to say their names, but these are actual real questions. All right.
Yeah.
So the first question from somebody in your actual group is, how do I speak my spouse's love language and do it throughout the day? So first question is, I keep hearing about this, but I don't really know that much about it. What the hell, love language is? What are we talking about here?
So there are 5 love languages, but to make it super easy and understandable for people, how to incorporate your love languages within a marriage is, what does your spouse enjoy? So for example, like my spouse really loves coffee. Okay, great. So your spouse really loves coffee. If your spouse's love language is physical touch, maybe when your spouse is drinking their coffee, you can rub their feet, or you can hold their hand, or you can give them a back massage. You know, if your spouse's love language is quality time, so quality time with coffee is they're sitting down having their coffee and you're sitting down next to them and just having a conversation, spending the time together with them while they're drinking their coffee. If your spouse's love language is gifts, maybe you can buy them some really extravagant new flavors of coffee. If your spouse's love language is acts of service, you can maybe make the coffee for them. Get up early and be like, here, honey, I have coffee already brewed and ready for you to sit down with. If your spouse's love language is words of affirmation, that's the 5th one. You can say something like, you make the best coffee. I enjoy your coffee. I love it when you make it. And it's just the best. You're affirming them in what they like.
Okay, so it's not just what they like; it's how they like the thing, and then that totally makes sense. So it's like you're tailoring your message to like what your spouse is into. That totally makes sense, and that is something that completely makes sense. It's not always obvious to me.
Yeah.
But okay, that's cool. All right, here we go. Buckle up. How can I enhance or spice up our sex life and keep the intimacy going?
All right. So I actually love to talk about sex with my clients. And one of the things that we can do to enhance our sex life, right? If you're in a marriage that's been decades long, it can get kind of boring, huh? So one way to spice it up is by making a sex video with your spouse. So,
young lady Monica. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Not what I was expecting.
No, right?
Yeah.
As a Christian, I can't endorse pornography, but you can completely make a sexy sex video with your spouse, have fun with it, and then watch it together as well. You can get a lot of leverage out of making this video and really spice up your marriage in that kind of a way.
Wow. That's great. Yeah. And if you're doing what a crazy adventure to have with your spouse, right? Yeah, that's so fun and not what I was expecting you to say. Cool. Awesome. All right. Okay. Next, how do I handle conflict so that my partner and I feel safe and not threatened by each other?
Yeah. Conflict can be really scary within a marriage. And so a couple of things to do to create safety is by first affirming your spouse when you want to bring up an area of weakness by saying, I love you. I care about you. I want to have this conversation from a place of respect. So you're communicating to them how you feel about them while you're bringing up an area of weakness, letting them know that you see them. Another way to create safety is by just saying, this is my hope for the conversation. My hope is to problem solve with you, or maybe your hope is to understand them a little bit more, so that there's a specific goal that you're wanting to accomplish within that conversation. So it's not just all about blame and accusation, but it's for purpose. So you're not bringing up Go ahead, yeah.
And this is emotional safety. If it's a question of physical safety, presumably,
yeah.
Yeah.
If it's an issue of physical safety, then you leave the conversation. You end it. You say, "I'm not feeling safe right now." You end the conversation, and maybe you go into a separate room in the house, or maybe you leave the home altogether. Physical safety is a whole other issue, but for emotional safety, being aware to not blame, to not accuse, and to remember that this is your friend that you're talking to. This isn't your enemy. This is your friend. How would you like to talk to your friend?
Cool. That's great. Yeah. And that's one of the common threads that I see, visiting your group is that there's a friendship and a camaraderie that I think sometimes people can forget when they're in a marriage, is that this is also your buddy, your goof around buddy, as well as the person who you're, locking antlers with. All right. Yeah. So then next question from someone in your group is, how can my spouse and I increase our time praying with each other?
Well, you can one way to do that is by setting an appointment with your spouse, getting it on the calendar and saying, we're going to pray together, maybe right before we go to bed, or we're going to start our day together praying with each other. So you're making an appointment with your spouse, being intentional and saying, this is when we're going to do it, and then follow through. Another way to do it is by doing daily devotionals with your spouse, picking a devotional that you both agree upon and do it together. And then at the end of that devotional, usually there's already a prayer there.
What's a devotional for those of me who don't know what that is? What is that?
A devotional is a book that is just it has something to read for each page for each day of the week for an entire year. And it's very short, and it's about a specific topic. So they give an example of how to walk out the specific thing for the day. And then at the end of that like paragraph, it has a way to pray what that topic is about. So if the topic is about trusting God, there's going to be an example of how to trust him in that devotional. And then at the end of it, it's going to provide a way to pray about trusting God.
Oh, cool.
And so everything's hand fed for you. So all you got to do is do it. You don't have to think about it. It's right there for you.
And now we come to the out of your comfort zone questions. This is a question Monica is not familiar with, either the question or the area. This is like just completely out of left field. So the question that we have from a real person, but not somebody who has anything to do with Monica's group, is 2 months ago, I invited my cousin and a +1 to my wedding. I hate her new boyfriend. Can I rescind the +1?
No, I would say no.
Really?
Yeah.
You think he's a jerk? He still gets to come?
Yes, I do. We don't have to like our cousins, our family members, our friends, significant others.
Also, like, it's not even significant. It's just 2 months. It's a recent. So this could just be like the guy of the week who we won't even have to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, so this, right. It might be right. This isn't necessarily a significant other. This is a, Mr. Right Now. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Right Now, we don't have to like Mr. Right Now.
Yeah.
We do like our cousin.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Okay. All right. I was thinking the other way, but I think you've convinced me. Right. You're right. Like, who cares if someone's slightly obnoxious at your wedding? Like, who cares? It's your wedding. You're having fun. But your cousin is a long-term relationship. This other person probably isn't. But on the other hand, if they are, also maybe they grow on you, Like, yeah, all right, you've convinced me. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. I'm sold. All right. Thanks, Monica.
You're welcome, David.
Okay, and so we have Coach Robin Montegari from Love Yourself Fiercely. Hi, Robin.
Hey, David.
Hello.
Hey, coaches.
So tell us a little bit about what your group, Love Yourself Fiercely, is all about.
Sure. Love Yourself Fiercely is a free group on Facebook, and it's really meant to inspire and motivate women. Part of what I do in my own coaching is to coach women into self-confidence, self-love, a personal vision, and a plan to see it through. So that's kind of what Love Yourself Fiercely is all about.
Oh, that's lovely. You should definitely check it out. It's a really, really lovely, safe, exciting space on Facebook. Yeah. These are the questions that we've gathered from real members of Love Yourself Fiercely. And you are going to be our expert and help us out with these. How do I stop worrying so much?
Worrying. And boy, this one really, well, first of all, it can get in the way of having the kind of life you want, right? But this one really speaks to where we are today in our world, right? There's so much to worry about. It feels like we've been in a pandemic. The world feels unstable and often scary right now. What will next year look like for us? There's so many things outside of us to worry about. And then there's the things that maybe keep us up at night just in our own lives, right? Things that, you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep because you're worrying. So here's my input on worry and how you manage worry. And this is coming from a longtime warrior, not so much anymore, but a longtime warrior. So the object of the game here is really get to know yourself, self-awareness, notice when you're worrying, and then get really curious about it. The first thing to ask yourself is there anything I could do about this right now? If there is nothing you can do about it right now, then go back to sleep, look at it again tomorrow morning, and maybe come up with a plan if you can, if there are things that you can do. The other question there is any of this in my control? So the world situation is not in our control. I know it's hard to turn off the worry, but if you can remind yourself that, right now I'm safe, I have food on my table. I have heat in my home. I can turn on the light switch. I have clothes. My family is okay. If you can remind yourself of those things and then maybe incorporate some breathing techniques, some breath work to just recenter yourself, calm down your nervous system, and then distract yourself. Distract yourself by doing something that you enjoy. Call a friend, journal if you enjoy journaling, play the piano if you like to play the piano, turn on Netflix, take your mind off of it. So notice what you're worrying about, get curious about it. What can I do about it? What do I have control over here? Honor it. You don't want to stuff it down. You want to honor it. Yeah, this is kind of worrisome. I'm a little scared. And then allow it to be, do some breathing, and distract yourself for a while. And that, my friends, is practicing. That's also teaching your brain to change the way it looks at worry and the way it lets worry impact you.
Cool. Yeah, that's really, when I do that, I feel better. When I don't do that, then that's when I spin out. I like how a lot of the way you're talking about this stuff is you're sort of like halfway between brain science and like touchy-feely warmth and compassion. It's a nice combination. It's a really, it's a very
I love the combination.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is a little bit sad. What do you do when you feel like no one really needs you anymore?
Think of your kids leaving. Your kids are always going to be your kids, right? So your goal was to be a great mom. Part of that goal was to raise adults who would be independent, be able to make decisions, be able to take care of themselves, and be able to be resilient if they made mistakes. You've met part of your goal. Hopefully you've raised those young adults and now they are trying out all of those things that you have been teaching them all along. So do they need you as much? No, and that's the way it should be. You still need them, but again, that's who you've been for so many years. So what do you do to combat that? So here's my thoughts on that. As a mom, establishing new relationships with your young adult children, you want to remind yourself that you've done your job, that you've done a great job, and that you can have a new, fun, exciting kind of relationship with your kids. And part of that is biting your tongue. Takes work and it takes time to get used to it, and not always jumping in there with advice and jumping in there to tell them they're about to make a wrong decision. If you really want to have those conversations, and this is what I did with my kids after I made some mistakes, I would say, do you mind if I give you my opinion on that? And sometimes, yeah, they did mind and they didn't want my opinion. And sometimes they would say, yeah, all right, what do you think? And then they would still go make their own decision. And then I would have to remind myself, I did my part. And then I also know that if they need me, if they need a hug, if they need a shoulder to cry on, if they need an ear, if they need an opinion, I will be there for them. But I can't push it on them. And so the other key to that is explore the things that interest you. Remind yourself that, you know what, now you've got time to do things that you haven't had time to do for years. So maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you are really creative and you like to paint, or you want to write a book, or maybe you want to train for a half marathon or a marathon, or maybe you just want to craft or volunteer at a hospital. Whatever those interests are, now's your time to explore them. And I promise you that when you are exploring those and doing those and you're getting excited about them, you're going to have so much more richness to bring to those adult relationships with your kids.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great advice. And that's, I've definitely seen that. I don't have kids, but with friends of mine, as their parents, like some of them got like really cool, weird hobbies, in midlife. And it makes it like, wait, it's like, what are you doing? That's really great. And I actually have a feeling this is going to be part of the answer to our next question, which is, how do I make friends at this stage in my life? I'm assuming that's midlife. So how do I make friends at this stage of my life?
Yeah. Not so easy. And so there's two pieces to this. Well, maybe more, but two pieces that I'm going to touch on. So for one thing, our lives are changing. You may still have friends that have younger kids or older kids. Everybody's in a different place. But what's complicated this a little bit, of course, is the pandemic, right? So we were kind of isolated for a while. You may have lost some connection to friends that you had. Social media is great in that during those times when we really couldn't go out, we could kind of see each other and still interact. But nothing takes the place, right, of those lunches and movie dates and hanging out at the park or your running buddy or whatever it is. So you may have lost some of that. And it's not easy to jump back in. So you may have a group of friends that maybe they've started getting together again. And maybe you were a little hesitant. We all feel differently about our level of comfort with the pandemic, right? So now here's where social media can really bite us in the butt. So now you'll see pictures of your friends getting together, and maybe you've said, no, I'm not ready so many times that they don't even think to call you and include you, just out of habit. And so that hurts, right? So it's not easy to break through that. Takes a little bit of courage. So I would say, talk to yourself about having some courage, and then maybe reach out to some of those old friends and say, hey, are you ready to get together? Let's get together and have a lunch date. Let's go see a movie. The risk in that is you may not get a response, or you may not get the response you want. And that can feel crushing. But what I want to offer you is, instead of letting that feel crushing, decide that that's just information. That's just information. You need to move on to other people. Maybe that friendship was great for what it was, and maybe you'll reconnect in the future, but it's not for now, because your goal is to have some social interaction. So I would reach out to some old friends and try to reconnect. If you're looking at making new friendships, which I know some of my friends in the group are, here's some suggestions, okay? So if you walk your dog or go to the grocery store or any of the things that you do out in public, if you walk your dog at the park, for example, I would say find the times when you're there that there are people that look interesting to you, and then go to those places at the same time. So if there's like a group of women or a couple of women who are at the park walking their animals at the same time, eventually you start to make eye contact and it feels more familiar, and you can start some conversations and see if you can meet some people that way. Same thing at the grocery store or at your church or whatever it is that you do. Be a little bold. And if you have a conversation with somebody and you're like, geez, we kind of share the same interests, or you do something that I'm really interested in, what do you think about getting together for a lunch date? And if that person says yes, pull out your phone and make a date right then and there. Don't put it off, and start to build some relationships that way. And the one last thing that I'll say back to social media is almost every town, I don't know if there's any town, small town, city, neighborhood, that doesn't have a Facebook group for the town, like XYZ Towns group, and people talk about what's going on in the town and whatever. Don't be afraid to post something in there like, hey, looking for some social interaction. Let's have a coffee meetup at the local Starbucks on Tuesday at 2:00. Again, you might not get any responses, but you might get some responses. And remind yourself, because this is true, you are not the only person who's feeling alone, who's looking for more friends, who's coming out of isolation. It's a very common feeling. So you may be extending the hand that somebody really needs.
Cool. So, yeah, that's lovely. And as somebody who moved to New York City in my 40s, yeah, it was like, and I knew a couple people here, but I didn't know that many people here. Yeah, and I've definitely had a couple of times where I've just sort of like been having like a random conversation, and then either I or that person is like, hey, like, I know this is sort of weird, but like, do you want to, like acknowledging that. And then, it usually is just ends up the other person's like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't, so, somebody needs to be the slightly awkward one to, take a risk. Yeah. And everybody's feeling the same way, and people really appreciate it when you do.
It's true.
Yeah.
So that's such great advice, David, to our friends. Be the awkward one.
Yeah. And it's okay to cop to it. Like, someone's going to be the awkward one. I mean, I've had that done to me, and I've done that to somebody else, and it feels really weird. It's like, it's exactly like when you're on the playground and like, hey, do you want to be friends? But you can do it when you're, 40.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So then this last question is out of your comfort zone. So this is a question that is not Robin's area of expertise, and she doesn't know what this question is. All right. So, Robin, here's a question that I've collected that you don't know about. My longtime buddy has recently adopted a nickname that I find annoying. Do I have to call him that? And we need a yes or no answer, then you can explain, but we need a yes or no at the beginning.
Your longtime buddy has adopted a nickname.
Recently.
You find it annoying.
Yeah.
Do you have to call him that?
Yeah, he just started wanting to go by whatever.
No.
All right. Explain.
Want my explanation?
Shouldn't we be calling people what they want to be called?
Yes. Yes. But if it's your longtime buddy, and David, there's a couple of ways to look at this.
I know,
really
that's why.
Hard.
No, I know. That's why I wanted
it's
to make
really
you commit
hard.
to. I actually agree with that. But no, I agree with your answer. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. If it's your longtime buddy and they've adopted a nickname, let's say Bull, call me Bull.
Yeah.
And if it's your longtime buddy, because my longtime buddy, I'd be like, I love you, but I'm not calling you Bull.
Totally. Yeah. 100%.
I'm going to call you Catherine because that's your name.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. This is lovely, Robin. So tell us once again where to find Love Yourself Fiercely.
Absolutely. So you can search Love Yourself Fiercely on Facebook. It's a free group. My name is Robin Montegari, so it would be attached to my name.
You also do one-on-one coaching.
Request to join.
Yeah. And then if somebody's interested in one-on-one coaching, how would they get in touch with you?
If someone is interested in one-on-one coaching, please, even if you're not in the group, you can, right now you can search me in Facebook and you can private message me. Or from the group, we can always connect there. So, so those are right now the two ways.
All right, cool. Excellent. All right, we did it. That is episode 2 of Coach Be Coach, the coach where we ask coaches questions and they give us answers. I'm David Rackoff, the founder and leader of the Leadership Self-Expression Lab. Feel free to come and check out the Leadership Self-Expression Lab on Facebook. And thank you guys so much. All right, bye, audience. Bye, coaches.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.